Okay, welcome to the South African Schoolboy Rugby Report, the home of South African Schoolboy Rugby. Today we're looking at Schoolboy Rugby Features for the weekend, ending on the 14th of March. My top 3 matches to watch this weekend and the Under-19 first 15 rankings from 2025 to see just how teams stack up against each other this coming weekend. So let's get straight into it. And ladies and gentlemen, the first game that we need to talk about this weekend is the game between Paarl Roos and Drostdy. Now, many people are calling for Drostdy, the Donkeys, to cause an upset against Paarl Roos, because the last time these two teams met in 2025, they actually caused quite a scare for Paarl Roos. Paarl Roos did beat them eventually by 25 points to 20, and many people say this is the year that the Donkeys could cause an upset. However, I'm not sure I fully agree with that opinion just yet, although Drostdy is a very talented side, well coached, and got some really speedy, fleet-footed backline players. I still believe that the gap between the top 5 schools in South Africa and schools such as Drostdy, who sometimes falls within or just outside the top 50 schools in South Africa, is just a tad bit too big at this stage. Also, when you look at Drostdy's results from 2025, just after they caused that almighty scare for Paarl Roos, they went down by 55 points to 19 to Paul Boyzai, 61-15 to Affies, 92-12 to Paarl Gymnasium, and 31 points to 7 when they played against Oakdale. So although it's not impossible to cause an upset, I just think it's at this stage just a tad bit unlikely. Then another game to keep an eye on this weekend, I think, will be the Bishops and Paarl Gim game. Bishops, they had a disappointing season compared to their historical standards, but the good thing for Bishops is that they've got a new director of rugby in Robbie Fleck. And if he can do with Bishops what he has done with the Ike Tigers in Cape Town and the success that he's achieved with the University of Cape Town in the Varsity Cup, I think Bishops could have a very strong game a very strong team this year. Then, with regards to Worcester Gymnasium, they just got handed a hiding from Outeniqua. They conceded 99 points last weekend. So, and as most of you know who have played rugby, results like that do leave emotional and psychological scars. So it'll be interesting to see how Worcester Gymnasium can bounce back from that result. Then another big game that many people are talking about is the Paarl Gymnasium Stellenberg game. Both teams have some very, very talented players. Stellenberg, they've got Jovan Burden. Many people say, along with Lamla Ngedezi from Grey College, they were probably the 2 most talented under 17 players in South Africa last year. Jovan Burden, he is a lock. He plays for Stellenberg. He made the EPD squad last year and also was a South African SA Schools A representative last year. Very talented, big, strong, physical ball carrier. So I'm pretty sure he won't take any nonsense from the Paarl Gim guys this weekend. Then also they've got a fly-off by the name of Ethan van Biljon. He played for the Craven Week side, the Western Province Craven Week side last year as well. Very talented footballer. I saw a lot of his rugby at the Craven Week was at fullback, because they had such an array of talent in their team. However, he did make the SAA school side as well and could steer the ship nicely for Stellenberg in this feature. Paarl Gymnasium, on the other hand, they consistently ranked in the top 5 schools in South Africa, probably the top 1, 2, or 3 rugby school in South Africa over the last 5 years or so. Head coach Peter Rousseau, and they've got a whole heap of experience returning to this team this year. In fact, more than half of their team, the Paarl Gymnasium team, will be back this year. They've got lots of experience. 3 players that I think you can keep your eye on out for is number 4 lock Jean Dreyer, number 9 Mikhail Boysa, who also made the South African A side last year, Craven Week representative, and then also the fly-off Louis Kuhn. I like Louis Kuhn simply because I really like the way his father played, and if Louis Kuhn, and I saw Louis Kuhn, the son, play last year against Grey College, and I was very impressed by his maturity and composure in a very difficult fixture. I think he came on as a replacement, if I recall correctly, or he started the match, but he handled himself very, very well. And one good thing about the Kuhn brothers, there's Liam and Louis, is they've got such such smooth kicking styles, just like their dad. So I always enjoy watching them. Should be an interesting game. Stellenberg last year, they did beat Boland, Landbouw, Durbanville, Ronnebosch, and Bishops. But also, I think at this stage, maybe Paarl Gim just a tad bit too strong for Stellenberg to cause an upset. But let's see what happens on Saturday. Then the big one, Oakdale versus Grey College. This is a game that I'm definitely not going to miss. Many people have been licking their lips and waiting for this game. Oakdale under coach Malan du Plessis have done some amazing things over the last few years. Last year when Oakdale and Grey College met, Grey College beat them by 25 points to 10. But since that game, Oakdale went on from strength to strength and they became a real formidable force in schools rugby last season. They've got some great players in their side. Hooker Adrian Smith, EPD player, plays hooker, was in the Southwestern District's Cravenweek side, very handy player. And then they've got an absolute massive human specimen in Dion Augustine, 204 centimeters, 120 kilograms. He will be a lock, and you can watch him. Huge man. And then there's star player and captain Jacobus de Villiers. He was the SA Schools captain last year. By the way, Dion Augustine also made the South African A school side last year. But their captain Jacobus de Villiers, captain of the star player, and also a SA Schools representative, and many say will probably be the SA Schools captain again this year. Will be a key player for Oakdale heading into this weekend. As for Grey College, they're always a formidable outfit. It's hard to actually say that Oakdale will win this match just purely because Grey College has such a great history, and it feels kind of strange to say Grey will not win. However, an upset is definitely possible. Oakdale did cause an upset last year when they beat Hoër Jongenskoon Paul Boys High. So it's not impossible for them to beat them. But yeah, probably Grey, as always, you do tend, when the matchups are close like this, to maybe just give them the advantage and maybe say that they will get away with the win. Now, many people may be looking forward to seeing Lamlam Ngedezi, another great under-17 player from last year, to play for Grey College. But as far as I understand, he actually fractured his spine playing in a rugby tournament in the latter stages of 2025. So he will not be playing this weekend, from what I can gather. He will be back later on in the season. But two other guys that you could keep your name on is Neil Durant, a very promising young loose forward, under 17 player. And I've heard some very, very good things of him. Keep your eyes on him. Neil Durant, number 8. Very good loose forward. And then, of course, there's also a talisman in Orion Klein. He's an inside centre, had a great Craven week, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what he can do this year. Then another great game that I think can be interesting to watch is the game between Outeniqua and Nikumalan. Outeniqua and Nikumalan met last year, and I think Outeniqua in the end won by about 10 to 15 points. But what I am excited about this game is to see how far Nikumalan has progressed. They've really improved a lot over the last 5 to 10 years, and they consistently crack the top 50 schools in South Africa. Many of you might not know this, but they are one of the oldest schools in South Africa. In fact, 176 years old, and they've really been doing some great things under head coach Jaco Nepgen, who's also an old Marties player, Griquas representative, and he's really been doing some great things with that team. So I'm very interested to see if Nikumalan can cause an upset this weekend. For our next fixtures, going to the KZN region, I think Hilton and Westville can also be a very good match. As far as I remember, Westville was unbeaten in the KZN region last year under coach Zander Erasmus, and they've got some great players. Lwandile Laba and Jadrian Afrikaner were both SA Schools representatives, so you can keep your eye out for them. And then KZN, Hilton College, number 8, Zander Miller is also apparently one to look out for in the future. So that should be a good game to watch. And Westville also plays a very exciting brand of rugby. Hilton plays territory and the kicking game very well with a very, very strong defense. So I'm very curious to see how they go this weekend. And then just at the bottom of the list, we've also got Selborne and Stirling. This could be very interesting because it was reported last year that former Springbok coach Jake White has been appointed as a consultant for the Selborne rugby team this year. So it'll be very interesting to see how he goes about his business this year along with their new coach Derek Page, who what I have been told is the most cap, or was the most cap, first 15 player ever in the history of Selborne, and was also the 1986 head boy. So it'll be interesting to see how the relationship between Derek and Jake White gets on this season. I know many people not a fan of Jake White, not many people's cup of tea, but for me, he really is a great coach, and he has a track record of turning teams around. So it'll be very interesting to see how Selborne goes this season. Okay, next up, we have got some of the fixtures in the Eastern Cape region. Dale and Hudson Park, always an entertaining game. You can be sure that there will be lots of running in that game. And then another team that I really enjoy watching, I also remember playing against them at school, is Graham College. Not the most physical team in the world, but a very, very skillful team with some lightning quick backs. They've got 3 guys to look out for. Luke Doyle, the scrum half, Aaron Nelson, the center, and Lucretia Machau, one of my favorite players from last year. An absolute gem. Very exciting player, in the similar mold of Lamlam Ngedezi. Every time he touches the ball, something happens. So keep your eye out for him. Aaron Nelson, the center, and Machau, they both represented South African schools, the SAA school side. So keep an eye out for them. They should be very good to watch. Then, with regards to Frainsby and St. Andrews, they've had some epic battles in the past. St. Andrews beat Frainsby by 46 points to 17, but Frainsby has also been consistently in the top 30 to 40 schools in South Africa over the last 5 years. And I think under the leadership of Louis Gerber, they've played some brilliant rugby. They've consistently beaten Grey High School from Port Elizabeth, and they've also had some upsets against big schools like Helpmekaar over the last 5 years. They've had some very, very good sides indeed. And also I've seen recently that they've bolstered their coaching ranks with 2 I would say international caliber player coaches. First of all, Roelof Smith, he played for the Bulls and Golden Lions between 2013 to 2019, and he also had that one game against the Barbarians for South Africa. Very good fetcher, very good player, a very capable player, and I remember many people actually calling him to be included in the Springbok teams as a fetcher. He's in charge of the under-14s, and then Johan Meyer, former Queen's College boy and Italian representative who played 14 games for them. He's in charge of the under-15s, but I'm pretty sure they'll be very close to Louis Gerber and advising him on taking Frainsby's game to a new level, and it'll be very interesting to see how they go about their season. Frainsby, like I said, they've been good over the last 4-5 years. They've had some good results, but last year they were a bit disappointing according to their high standards, or based on their high standards. They went down 75-0 to Oakdale, 64-5 to Boland Landbou, and also 62 points to 7 to Helpmekaar. So hopefully they can get things back on track this year with their new coaching staff and some exciting players. Then another cool thing that I saw here was the game between Victoria Park and Kingswood. And you might say Victoria who? And I would say Victoria Park. Victoria Park, many of you might not know this, but in the early 2000s, they were actually ranked the top small rugby school in South Africa. They were the national winners of a competition, and let me just explain that very briefly. So in the early 2000s, Die Burger and Media 24, they had a rugby competitions for big schools, medium schools, and small schools. Big schools, I think, were for schools with over 800 students. Medium schools were for schools between 600 and 800 learners, and then small schools were for schools with less than 500 learners. And Victoria Park actually won the small schools competition nationally. And they actually were off the radar for a little bit, but it's been very good to see how they've actually played. They actually played Dale College last weekend. They took 50 points, and this weekend Dale is also a top 50 school on many rankings. And this week they're taking on another top 50 school, Kingswood. And although I think Kingswood will be too strong for Victoria Park, it's great to see that they're also following a path similar to Nico Malan, trying to get bigger, stronger opposition to compete with, because they believe that'll improve their rugby. And hopefully this can help Victoria Park reach their former heights that they had in the early 2000s. I've watched a few games of them on YouTube in the past. They seem like a very well coached, well organized unit. Definitely not a top 50 side in South Africa, but definitely can be a force to be reckoned with in future. Maybe like a Nico Malan, if the correct rugby structures and programs are set in place in that school. Then also just a big shout out to Diamantveld and Trio. They're playing each other this weekend. Trio lost 48-12 to Grey College, but I'm sure they're very well prepared for their matchup with Diamantveld. And as you recall, Diamantveld caused, I think, maybe one of the biggest, or not the biggest, but one of the first upsets of the seasons by beating Monument last week by a single point. So they'll be on a high, and they'll be looking to replicate that form when they play Trio. But yeah, also Diamantveld, another school that has implemented a good rugby program and has really improved over the last 5 to 10 years. Then looking at the Vaal region, I must be honest, I haven't watched too many of these teams play this year and late last year. But what I can tell you is that if you want to see big South African schoolboys giving it their all, some massive hits, massive tackles, and massive carries, I highly recommend that you click and watch one of these games. They play a completely different style to maybe some of the schools in the Southern Cape or Western Cape region. Always good to watch them, and I remember playing against some of these schools as well as a 16-year-old, and I remember their under 15s and under 16s were bigger than our school's under 18 players. Especially, just amazing to see. So yeah, if you want to see some big bodies, check out these games over here. And then finally, we wrap up our school fixtures by looking at these games over here. I think the Waterkloof Affies game will also be a massive clash. There's always a lot of emotion in that game. Historically, it's been one of the top schoolboy derbies and games in South Africa. But we must say that Waterkloof has struggled a bit in recent years. Their last win coming in 2017 against Affies. So you've got to probably favor Affies to take this one, although the game will be played on Waterkloof's home turf. And also the last 48 meetings between these teams since 1987, Affies has come out victorious 38 times. So could be tough for Waterkloof, but again, could be a good representation of talent that'll be on display at the Craven Week later this year, since the Blue Bulls Craven Week side often gets chosen from these two schools. So yeah, should be a cracking game to watch. Now, as for the top 3 matches this weekend, I do think that the Grey College Oakdale game will be a cracking match. Again, I'm tipping Grey College to emerge victorious from this one. But as I said earlier, keep your eye out for Jacobus de Villiers, the captain of the Oakdale team, and then also since he's a number 8, I think the battle between Neil Durant will be quite interesting to watch. Then for the Paarl Gim Stellenberg game, I do think Paarl Gim will come out victorious in this one. Maybe some players to keep out for the Paarl Gim side. Keep an eye on Mikael Boyce. He was a SAA schools representative, as I mentioned earlier. And then keep an eye on Ethan van Biljon from the Stellenberg side. Very talented fly-off, and should be an interesting battle between him and the son of former Springbok Louis Kuhn in the fly-off berth. Okay, and then finally the Waterkloof Affies match. Again, tipping Affies here. I've watched some videos of them training in the gym. I must say the boys are looking massive, but I also know Waterkloof never stand back. There's a lot of history between these two schools. Should be a cracking game, but just purely based on history, I've got to think that I'm going to go with Affies for this one. Then guys, just quickly looking at the schoolboy rankings from 2025, just to see how teams stack up against each other this weekend. Obviously, there are lots of different rankings out there and many different criteria that people use to actually rank schools. So it's hard to say who is the top schoolboy team in South Africa, etc. But I think based on my comments that I've just made, it becomes quite clear why I made the predictions that I've made earlier. If you look at Paarl Roos, they're ranked 5th. On this list, that courtesy of rugby365.com, HTS Drostdy is 38. And I just think that the gap between those schools is just a bit too tight for Drostdy to cause an upset. Then an interesting one is if you look at number 27 and 8, Diamantveld and Monument, they played each other last week, and who won? Diamantveld. The difference in the ranking is 1, and Diamantveld beat them by 1 point. And then just going further on, if you look at the Affies game, they are playing 22nd ranked Waterkloof, which again maybe makes me lean towards Affies taking this one. And then if you look at the Paarl Gim, they're ranked 2nd, and Stellenberg is ranked 11th. So maybe from all the matches that I mentioned there, except maybe the Oakdale and Grey College game, which is basically 3 versus 6. The Paarl Gim, second ranked Paarl Gim versus 11th ranked Stellenberg might also be a very good game to watch. But I'll keep you guys posted on any ranking changes that I've seen or whenever it gets posted. There's a lot available. There's a lot of rankings available out there. And like I said, it'll always cause a debate. But yeah, it's good to see teams like Nikumalan, being ranked 31st, Frainsby, some of the smaller schools, definitely improving their rugby programs and now competing with some of these top schools in South Africa. Right, guys, that is my video today. Thank you so much for watching the SA Schoolboy Rugby Report, the home of South African schoolboy rugby. Please subscribe for more schoolboy rugby content, for more news, for more fixtures and players to watch. And please hit the like button. See you in our next report.